So have you ever sat down ready to get to work on something, and as you go to start, your mind just goes blank? And I'm talking no ideas come to you, and you just try to press harder to get back to that normal situation where you can come up with ideas or something like that. And the harder you try, the further and further away it gets from you. And after a few minutes, you just realize you've just been staring at a blank screen for several minutes. Yeah, that was me just a couple of hours ago when I went to do all the things that I was supposed to do until I chose to just ignore those things and write this video instead. So, let's talk. So whether you're a photographer, a content creator, a web designer, a painter, any sort of a creative individual, you know that it takes a lot of conscious effort to keep coming up with ideas. And even more so when those ideas are supposed to be something that can be created and actually brought into fruition. And I'm not talking about those just things that pop into your mind, like a toaster made for bananas. I'm talking about something that is actually supposed to be made into an actual concept and brought into fruition as an actual working or living thing. Because the first one, coming up with the banana toaster, that does not take a lot of effort. But coming up with an actual idea and then turning that idea into an actual thing, that takes a lot of effort. For me, the whole reason that I ended up starting a YouTube channel and creating a photography business is because both of them allowed me to tap into what, at the time, seemed like just an endless vat of ideas. I mean, I consider myself a creative person, and my brain is just constantly firing off every which way, but mostly just coming up with ideas for all sorts of crazy stuff. So it makes sense for me to end up doing what I do. But one thing that I did not see coming when I started off on this journey was that once you've taken ideas and just chosen to actually go through with it and bring them into fruition, the bar to do that again goes much lower. So for me, I got the idea to make certain types of YouTube videos, and I got the idea to starting photography. After a long thought out process, I chose to actually act on those ideas, and I created a photography business, and I created my YouTube channel. But what is at the same time a blessing and a curse is the what comes after part. So nowadays, when I get creative ideas, after having acted upon my creativity, I am much more likely to actually start acting on those ideas as well, which can get you in trouble, in a way. Let me elaborate. So ever since I started my photography business, I started my YouTube channel, I've also started playing this little game called Dungeons and Dragons with my friends. If any of you are familiar with it, cool. If none of you are familiar with it, bear with me. Because the fact that we're now playing that game and my sort of role in that group means that I'm pretty much actively writing and creating a fantasy story as well. Amidst that, I actually found that I like creating fantasy stories and I like to create fantasy worlds as well. So I started creating a literal world. A fantasy world. If you're still lost, trust me, it'll make sense. But what usually before would have been something that I just got the idea that, hey, it could be cool to create fantasy worlds, I probably would not have acted on that impulse. But like I said, I've done it before, so now my bar is lower and I chose to act on it. And so I'm also, amidst all of that, creating a fantasy world right now. Another thing that actually inspired me with was the fact that, oh, I like writing stories. I actually started creating something, some sort of a mystery, crime, detective sort of stories as well. Short stories, but stories nonetheless. Again, before I would have noticed that idea and been like, yeah, that could be cool. But I never would have acted upon it, most likely. But since the bar has been lowered, I decided to act on that as well. So when I went to write this week's video, which is not this video, I am actively doing a photo shoot for a jewelry brand, doing a graphic design project for a client. I'm actively writing crime novels, I guess. Short stories. I'm actively creating a whole world, a fantasy world. I'm actively planning and designing the game that me and my friends are playing to, respond to their actions. So I'm doing a lot of creative stuff at the same time. So it came as a surprise to me that when I went to write this week's video script, it all just went dark. And I feel like the reason is something that I hadn't considered before. And I don't know how true this is, but it's just something that I feel. And I feel like creativity is a resource. The difference between a really creative person and non-creative person is just how much of that how big of a tank do you have for creative stuff? Pretty much no one has an infinite amount of creativity. Sure, it's a replenishing resource so that once you've used it all up, if you rest, it starts filling back up. But it's still a resource. You can run out if you're burning too much of it at once. It's pretty much somewhat in the same vein as that old saying that find a job that you enjoy doing and you'll never work a day in your life. I feel like that often gets misinterpreted. Because how I see that quote is that it's not saying doing what you love would somehow make you immune to burnout or exhaustion. If you are enjoying what you're doing, sure, you can do it for longer, but it will still exhaust you. Just like YouTube videos, just like streamers, it's still exhausting. At this point, what even is the point of this video? I'm not entirely sure. I guess what I'm trying to say is if you are a creative, it would be amazing if you could act upon all of your ideas and you can make all of your ideas into reality. But be careful with that. It doesn't matter that you enjoy doing something. You can still burn yourself out with it. I guess keep yourself in check and maybe focus on 1 or 3 of those things at once, and the rest will follow. Anyway, have a great rest of your week, everyone. I will see you all next week, I guess. See ya.